The galaxy had known peace for many years, with humans becoming more and more successful at building colonies, making alliances and spreading across the stars. But there were always those who looked down upon humanity. One such group was the Jarka, a race of powerful, warlike aliens known for their great strength and their ruthless empire. They saw themselves as the natural rulers of the galaxy, and to them, humans were nothing more than weak, primitive beings. Captain Elena Drake didn't care about the opinions of the Jarka. She had fought for years to make humanity respected across the galaxy, and she would not let one race stand in the way of her people's future. Elena wasn't just a captain. She was a symbol of humanity's strength, a leader who had led countless successful missions against the galaxy's most dangerous threats. Elena was summoned to the Jarka homeworld for a diplomatic mission. The Jarka royal family had invited her and other human officials to speak about a possible alliance. While the human diplomats were hopeful, Elena was skeptical. She had seen many peaceful talks end in disaster when the Jarka were involved. The moment she set foot on their planet, she could feel the tension in the air. The Jarka were known for their pride and arrogance, and their royal family was no exception. Princess Neritha, the daughter of the Jarka emperor, was young, but already famous for her strength and fighting skills. She had proven herself time and time again in combat, and it was said that no one could match her. She was as strong as she was fierce, and she believed that the galaxy should kneel before her people. The royal palace was a massive, cold structure made of black stone and shining metal. It stood on a hilltop, high above the planet's vast rocky landscapes. Inside, the Jarka court was as imposing as the building itself. The room where the meeting was held was filled with alien dignitaries from all over the galaxy, each one watching with keen interest as Elena entered with the human delegation. Princess Neritha stood at the center of the room, her green skin glowing in the artificial light, her long black hair flowing down her back. She was tall and proud, her eyes filled with confidence and superiority. As Elena approached, the princess smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile, but a challenge. "I've heard much about humans," Neritha said, her voice cold and commanding. "You claim to be the future of the galaxy, yet I wonder, how strong are you truly?" Elena remained silent, not reacting to the princess's words. She had faced insults before, and they didn't bother her. But it was clear that Neritha wasn't just talking about strength in battle. She was testing humanity's worth. Neritha took a step forward, her eyes locked onto Elena's. "I will show you what true strength is. I challenge you to a duel, human," she declared. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to Elena. "You won't last a minute against me," Neritha added with a mocking laugh. Elena's heart raced for a moment, but her face remained calm. She had heard about the princess's reputation. Neritha was known for her physical strength and her ruthless combat skills. But Elena wasn't afraid. She had faced enemies more dangerous than this before. "I accept your challenge, princess," Elena replied, her voice steady and confident. The room erupted in whispers. The Jarka court had not expected Elena to accept the challenge so easily. The princess, on the other hand, looked pleased. She had no doubt she would defeat this human and prove once again that the Jarka were the true rulers of the galaxy. The duel would take place in the royal arena, a massive coliseum made of smooth metal and glass, designed to showcase the strength and skill of combatants. The arena was equipped with energy fields that neutralized weapons, forcing fighters to rely on their physical abilities alone. It was the perfect place for Neritha to demonstrate her superiority. The next day, Elena and Neritha stood face to face in the center of the arena, surrounded by thousands of spectators. The Jarka royals sat in their grand seats, looking down at the two fighters. The air was thick with anticipation, and Elena could feel the weight of the moment. Neritha stood tall, her arms raised in a victory pose. She was ready to show the humans who was truly in charge. Elena, however, kept her posture relaxed and calm. She knew that in a fight like this, being too tense would only slow her down. "Are you ready, human?" Neritha called out, her voice carrying across the arena. Elena nodded. "Let's do this." Without warning, Neritha charged forward, moving with lightning speed, Her alien strength was evident as she closed the gap between them in an instant. She swung her fist with terrifying force, but Elena was quick. She dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding the blow. Neretha's fist crashed into the ground, creating a massive shockwave that shook the entire arena. The crowd gasped in awe, but Elena didn't flinch. She had been in battles before where the odds were stacked against her. This was no different. As Neretha pulled her fist out of the ground and turned to face her, Elena seized the opportunity to strike. She aimed a quick punch at the princess's side, but Neretha was faster, twisting out of the way and grabbing Elena's arm. Neretha smirked. "You are fast, I'll give you that. But you're no match for me." Elena didn't respond. Instead, she focused on her movements, analyzing Neretha's attacks. The princess was powerful, but Elena knew that strength alone wasn't enough to win a fight. She had learned that the hard way in the past. It was about strategy. And right now, Elena was playing her cards carefully. The duel continued, with Neretha attacking with brutal force and Elena countering with quick, calculated movements. The crowd was watching in stunned silence, unsure of what to expect. Would the human fall before the might of the Jarka princess? Or was there something more to this human warrior than they realized? As the fight wore on, Elena began to see patterns in Neretha's attacks. She was strong, yes, but she was also overconfident. Her blows were powerful, but they lacked the precision of a true master. Elena could see the princess's weaknesses. Every time she swung her fists, there was a small opening, a moment where Elena could strike. But Elena didn't rush. She waited. She knew that if she attacked too soon, she would be caught off guard. She needed the perfect moment. Neretha, meanwhile, was growing frustrated. She had landed several powerful blows, but the human was still standing. Elena's ability to dodge, evade, and counter was starting to wear on the princess. Her attacks were becoming more desperate, her movements more reckless, and that was exactly what Elena had been waiting for. With one final, powerful swing, Neretha left herself open. Elena moved like lightning, sidestepping the attack and landing a precise strike to the princess's side. Neretha stumbled, caught off balance for the first time in the fight. The crowd gasped. Elena had landed a blow. Neretha glared at Elena, her face twisted in anger. "You think you've won, human? You think this is over?" Elena didn't reply. She just stood ready, waiting for the princess to make her next move. The battle wasn't over yet. Not by a long shot. But one thing was clear. The princess had underestimated humanity. And now, Elena was about to show her exactly what humans were capable of. The arena buzzed with excitement, and the crowd's murmurs were like a distant hum in Elena's ears. She had been in tough situations before, but nothing quite like this. Thousands of spectators watched as she stood face to face with Princess Neretha, the pride of the Jarka people. Every movement, every glance was being observed. The stakes were higher than just a fight. This was about proving humanity's place in the galaxy. Neretha, her eyes blazing with anger and pride, was not pleased that a human had even landed a blow. The princess had expected the fight to be over quickly, with her crushing victory reinforcing the Jarka belief that they were the strongest species. But Elena had proven that she wouldn't back down easily. The human had skill, speed, and determination. As the dust settled, the princess took a deep breath and then charged again. Her speed was overwhelming, and she moved like a shadow, faster than Elena had expected. The force of Neretha's punches sent a shockwave through the arena, making the ground tremble beneath them. Elena barely managed to dodge the first blow, the air whooshing as Neretha's fist whizzed by. "Elena, don't get cocky," Elena reminded herself, keeping her focus sharp. She wasn't here to win with raw strength. She was here to outsmart her opponent. The princess wasn't just relying on her alien strength. Elena noticed that Neretha was also using her agility, her body flowing like a predator stalking its prey. Her movements were graceful and fluid, and her attacks had a rhythm to them that made them difficult to predict. But Elena had learned to read opponents like a book. She had studied Neretha's every move, analyzing how the princess fought and where her weaknesses lay. Elena's mind was racing. She needed to outthink the princess to find that one opening, that one chance to turn the tide of this fight. Neretha launched another attack, this time aiming for Elena's head. But Elena saw it coming from a mile away. She ducked, avoiding the strike by mere inches. Then, without hesitation, Elena spun around and kicked out with her leg, catching Neritha off guard. The kick wasn't powerful, but it was enough to unbalance the princess. Neritha stumbled backward, her arms flailing for a moment as she tried to regain her footing. The crowd gasped. For the first time, it was clear that the princess was struggling. Neritha's face twisted with rage, her pride taking a serious hit. She wasn't used to being the one on the defensive. "You're quick," Neritha hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "But that won't be enough." With a growl, the princess charged again, this time launching herself into the air, attempting to catch Elena with a powerful aerial strike. The Jarka princess was strong, but Elena had anticipated this. She dropped low, just in time for Neritha to fly over her head and crash into the ground. The impact was so intense that the arena floor cracked beneath the princess's landing. Elena quickly rolled away, her eyes narrowing as she scanned Neritha's movements. The princess was getting frustrated, and Elena could see it. That was a crack in her confidence. The longer the fight dragged on, the more likely it was that the Jarka would make a mistake. Humans had one powerful advantage: adaptability. Where an alien species might rely solely on their natural abilities, humans could think their way out of situations. They could adapt, learn, and grow in the heat of battle. But Neritha wasn't done yet. With a roar of fury, the princess summoned a burst of energy from deep within. Her body began to glow with an eerie green light as she tapped into the full extent of her abilities. Elena's eyes widened as Neritha's strength increased, her already impressive agility now enhanced by a powerful aura. The princess was using her alien energy to fuel her movements, and Elena could feel the change in the atmosphere. This was no longer just a physical fight, it was becoming a battle of wills. "I won't lose to you, human," Neritha shouted, her voice reverberating across the arena. Elena knew she had to act fast. The princess was becoming more dangerous with each passing second, and if Elena didn't take control now, she could lose the advantage she had gained. She had no choice but to escalate the fight. Elena sprang into action, using her own knowledge of the arena and the energy fields to her advantage. She had learned early on that the arena's energy fields, while designed to weaken most weapons, could be used to enhance her own combat suit. The suit was equipped with a device that allowed Elena to tap into the energy fields around her, briefly enhancing her strength and speed. It wasn't a permanent solution, but it was enough to give her the edge she needed. As Neritha charged once more, Elena activated the suit's power boost. Suddenly, Elena felt a surge of energy coursing through her body. Her muscles, already honed from years of training, felt even stronger. Her reflexes were sharper and her speed increased. She could now move faster than the princess, and her strikes were more powerful. Neritha's eyes widened as Elena launched herself forward. The princess tried to block the incoming attack, but Elena's newfound strength allowed her to break through Neritha's defenses. Elena's fist connected with Neritha's side, sending the princess sprawling to the ground. The crowd went silent, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. For the first time, Neritha had been knocked down. Neritha's face was a mixture of shock and fury. She pushed herself to her feet, her body trembling with anger. Her energy was fading, and it was clear that the princess had underestimated just how resilient and adaptable a human could be. "You," Neritha gasped, her breathing heavy. "You'll pay for this." But Elena didn't give her the chance to recover. She moved with lightning speed, closing the gap between them and launching another series of quick, calculated strikes. Neritha blocked the first two, but Elena's third punch caught her off guard. It wasn't a powerful blow, but it was enough to force the princess back. Elena then followed up with a roundhouse kick to Neritha's midsection, sending her stumbling again. The Jarka princess staggered, struggling to maintain her composure. Elena could see the princess's pride was taking a real hit. She was no longer the confident, unbeatable fighter she had once been. For the first time, Neritha was starting to doubt her own abilities. The energy around Neritha flickered as her power began to fade. The princess tried to summon more of her strength, but she was exhausted. Elena had been patient, letting Neritha wear herself out, and now the moment had come. The fight was tipping in her favor. "You may have strength," Elena said, her voice calm but filled with determination. "But strength alone won't win you this fight," Neritha snarled. Her teeth bared and lunged one last time, but Elena was ready. She sidestepped the attack, using the princess's momentum against her. With a swift move, Elena grabbed Neretha by the arm and twisted it behind her back, forcing the princess to her knees. The arena fell deathly silent. Elena held Neretha in place, her grip firm but not painful. The princess was defeated, not because she lacked strength, but because she had underestimated her opponent. Elena stood over Neretha, breathing heavily but victorious. The crowd, who had expected to see the human crushed, now stared in disbelief. They had witnessed something they had never seen before. A human had outsmarted, outlasted, and defeated one of the strongest fighters in the galaxy. Neretha looked up at Elena, her face a mask of fury and disbelief. "You," she whispered, unable to find the words. "I told you," Elena said, her voice steady. "You wouldn't last a minute against me." The crowd in the arena was stunned into silence. What had just happened? The Jarka princess, Neretha, the undefeated warrior who had been hailed as one of the strongest in the galaxy, was now on her knees, defeated by a human. Elena Drake stood over her, breathless but calm, her fists still clenched from the fight. The tension in the air was thick, the once confident alien princess now reduced to nothing more than a humbled opponent. For a moment, the arena remained still. Then slowly the murmurs started. The Jarka royal family exchanged uneasy glances. The high-ranking officials who had once looked down on humanity were now faced with the undeniable truth. Humans were not weak. They were capable of overcoming even the most powerful enemies. Neretha, her face flushed with frustration and anger, struggled to stand. Her hands pressed against the ground as she pushed herself up, her eyes blazing with a mixture of rage and disbelief. She had underestimated the human, and now she was paying the price. But despite the crushing blow to her pride, the princess refused to give up. She was a Jarka, and giving up was never an option. "You think you've won, human?" Neretha spat, her voice cold and venomous. Elena stood tall, her stance relaxed but her eyes sharp, watching the princess like a hawk. "I never said I won, Neretha. I said you wouldn't last a minute." The princess took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling as she fought to regain her composure. Elena's words had stung, but it was the princess's growing frustration that gave Elena an advantage. Neretha had thought her power and speed were enough to crush any opponent, but the human had proven otherwise. Now the princess was faced with something she hadn't expected: doubt. Her self-assurance was slipping, and Elena knew it. Neretha took a step back, her fists clenched as she glared at Elena with an intensity that could burn through steel. "You may have outsmarted me, human, but you don't know what you're up against. You've only seen a fraction of my power. It's time for you to truly understand what the Jarka are capable of." Elena tilted her head slightly, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "What do you mean?" In response, Neretha raised her arms high above her head, and the air around her began to crackle with energy. Elena's instincts immediately told her that this wasn't just any power. There was something different about it, something darker. Suddenly, a blinding light engulfed the princess's body, and Elena had to shield her eyes. When the light dimmed, Neretha was no longer standing the same way. Her body was surrounded by a faint, glowing aura, and her eyes were shining with a supernatural intensity. It was as if the princess had tapped into something far beyond her normal limits. Elena's heart raced, realizing what was happening. This was Neretha's secret weapon, something that had been hidden until now. The princess had used her alien strength and speed before, but this new power was something else entirely. Elena had no idea what it was, but she knew she had to be ready. Neretha grinned, a cruel smile stretching across her face. "This is the true power of the Jarka," she said, her voice booming with an unnatural force. "You can't outsmart this." With a wave of her hand, Neretha sent a wave of telekinetic force crashing toward Elena. The blast hit with such power that Elena was thrown backward, her body slamming into the arena walls. The impact knocked the wind out of her, and for a moment she couldn't breathe. The crowd gasped as they watched Elena struggle to get back to her feet, but Elena wasn't done yet. She'd been hit by powerful attacks before, and she knew how to recover. She gritted her teeth, pushed herself off the ground, and stood tall again. Despite the pain, despite the overwhelming force, she refused to back down. Neretha was now using her telekinetic powers to control the battlefield, sending debris flying toward Elena, forcing her to dodge and weave between the incoming attacks. Elena could feel the pressure building, the heat of the battle intensifying with every passing second. The princess was no longer just physically strong, she was now a threat on a whole new level. As Elena dodged yet another blast of energy, she realized that this fight was no longer just about strength or speed. It was about survival. Neretha had unleashed a power that was almost impossible to counter, and Elena's usual tactics wouldn't work against it. She needed to think fast. She needed to find a way to turn the tables again, but this time it wouldn't be as easy as before. The Jarka princess continued her assault, her telekinetic powers growing stronger with each wave of energy. Elena could feel her body growing tired, her movements slowing. The arena seemed to shrink around her as Neretha's power intensified. But then Elena remembered something, the one advantage humans always had: their ability to adapt. Humans had a remarkable talent for overcoming the odds, for finding solutions when things seemed impossible. Elena wasn't going to let Neretha's newfound power defeat her. She was going to find a way no matter what. Elena reached down and activated a hidden device on her suit. It was something she had been saving for just this kind of situation. A failsafe that would amplify her own strength by tapping into the energy fields of the arena. It was a gamble, but if she could just get close enough to Neretha, she could use her own enhanced abilities to counter the princess's telekinetic attacks. The moment Elena activated the device, she felt a rush of energy surge through her body. Her muscles pulsed with newfound strength and her reflexes sharpened. She could feel the arena's energy field flowing into her suit, boosting her capabilities to their maximum potential. With a renewed sense of power, Elena charged at Neretha, dodging another wave of telekinetic force. The princess's glowing eyes widened in surprise as Elena moved faster than she had before, closing the distance between them. Neretha raised her hands to unleash another blast, but Elena was ready. She sidestepped the attack and closed in on Neretha, using her enhanced strength to grab the princess's wrists, preventing her from using her telekinesis. Neretha struggled, but Elena's grip was unbreakable. The two women were locked in a fierce battle of wills, with the princess trying to break free and the human holding her ground. Elena's heart pounded in her chest as she fought to maintain control. She could feel Neretha's energy growing weaker as the princess fought to regain her focus, but Elena knew this was her chance. With all her strength, Elena twisted Neretha's arms, forcing her to the ground. The arena fell silent as the Jarka princess, who had once been so confident in her power, was now pinned beneath the human strength. Elena could feel the energy from her suit beginning to fade, but she had won. Neretha's power had been countered and the princess was finally outmatched. Neretha glared up at Elena, her chest rising and falling with exhaustion. She had no words left, no defiance to offer. The princess had underestimated the human, and now she knew the true strength of humanity. Elena stood over her, her face calm but resolute. "You've lost, Neretha," Elena said quietly, her voice steady. "And humanity's place in the galaxy is no longer in question." The crowd, who had once believed the Jarka to be unbeatable, now roared in approval. Humans had proven themselves in the most unlikely of ways. Elena had not only survived, she had triumphed. But even as the cheers rang out, Elena knew this battle was just the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and there would be more challenges ahead. However, one thing was certain: humanity had earned its place among the stars. The arena fell silent as Elena stood over Princess Neretha, her breathing slow but steady. The princess was pinned to the ground, her glowing eyes flickering with exhaustion and disbelief. The crowd, once certain that Neretha's power would be enough to crush the human, now watched in stunned silence. For the first time in the entire fight, Elena allowed herself to breathe. The battle had been fierce, harder than anything she'd faced before. Neretha had shown her true power, but Elena had shown something just as powerful: the ability to adapt, to think on her feet, and to keep fighting when all seemed lost. Neretha's chest heaved as she tried to push herself up, but the strength in her arms had faded. Elena's grip was unyielding. The Jarka princess, who had been so confident, so sure of herself, was now at the mercy of a human. "You've lost, Neretha," Elena said, her voice calm but firm. "Humanity's place in this galaxy is no longer in question." The princess glared up at Elena, her anger still burning in her eyes. For a moment it seemed like she might snap, might try to break free once more, but instead she took a deep breath and let her arms fall to the ground. She was beaten, and deep down she knew it. The fight had drained her completely. I didn't expect this, Neretha muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. Humans? You're not what I thought. Elena didn't respond at first. She was focused on the princess, making sure that Neretha wasn't hiding another trick. But when she spoke, her tone was firm and resolute. We're not just survivors, Neretha, Elena said. We're fighters. We don't give up even when everything tells us we should. Neretha's eyes narrowed, but instead of attacking again, she gave a slow, reluctant nod. You've earned this, she said quietly, almost to herself. The words weren't a surrender, but they were an acknowledgement, a recognition that humanity had proven itself. The crowd, who had been watching in stunned silence, began to stir. The murmurs grew louder, shifting from disbelief to admiration. Elena could see the faces of Jarka dignitaries in the stands, some still in shock, others begrudgingly impressed. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a turning point. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted. The Jarka royal family, once certain of their superiority, were now questioning everything. The Emperor, Neretha's father, sat stone-faced, his eyes fixed on Elena, his daughter. The pride of the Jarka people had been bested by a human, and it was clear that this moment would be remembered for a long time. Elena slowly released Neretha, taking a step back. She wasn't going to gloat, and she wasn't going to make this more difficult than it had to be. This battle had been won, but the real work was just beginning. I didn't want to fight you, Elena said quietly, offering the princess a hand to help her up. But I will do whatever it takes to show the galaxy who we are. Humans are not weak. We are strong, and we are capable of greatness. Neretha stared at the hand for a long moment, her pride wrestling with the reality of the situation. Finally, she took Elena's hand and allowed the human to pull her to her feet. The two stood facing each other, both battered and bruised, but somehow both equal now. There was no hatred in Neretha's eyes anymore, only respect. Before either of them could speak again, the Emperor rose from his seat. The massive figure of the Jarka ruler, tall and imposing, walked down the stairs toward the arena floor. The room fell silent once more. Every eye in the stadium turned to him. Elena straightened, her heart racing. She had no idea how the Emperor would react. The Jarka Emperor was a creature of tradition, a ruler who had held his people's pride at the center of his empire for centuries. But now, facing Elena and the defeat of his daughter, it was clear that the world he had known was changing. The Emperor's gaze swept over his daughter, still catching her breath, and then shifted to Elena. For a long moment, the two simply stared at each other. The air seemed to grow heavier with each passing second. Finally, the Emperor spoke, his voice deep and commanding. You have proven your strength, human, he said, his eyes narrowing slightly as he regarded Elena. This was not just a fight. This was a test of your people's resolve, and you have passed. Elena didn't say anything at first. She didn't know what to say. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment when humanity could finally take its place among the stars. The Emperor's words carried weight, and she knew that this was more than just an acknowledgement of her victory. It was a turning point in the galaxy's history. You will be treated with respect, the Emperor continued, his voice still stern but less cold than before. Your people have earned it. The crowd erupted into applause. It wasn't a thunderous cheer, but it was enough to make Elena's heart swell with pride. The Jarka were accepting what had just happened. They were beginning to see humanity not as weak and unworthy, but as equals. The tension in the air slowly began to fade as the Emperor turned and walked back to his throne. Elena stood in the arena, feeling the weight of the moment. Her heart was still pounding in her chest, and she felt the exhaustion from the battle creeping in. But there was a sense of fulfillment, too. She had done what she set out to do. She had proven that humanity was strong, not because of their physical power, but because of their resilience, their adaptability, and their ability to rise to any challenge. As the arena began to empty, the royal court members came forward, offering their congratulations. Some were sincere, others still holding on to their old prejudices, but Elena didn't mind. She had come here to fight for humanity's place in the galaxy, and she had succeeded. That was all that mattered. Later that day, in a private room within the palace, Elena sat alone for a moment. Her body ached, and the adrenaline from the fight had begun to wear off, but her mind was racing. The battle had been won, but the journey wasn't over. The galaxy was vast and there would be other challenges to face. But this moment, the defeat of Neretha, the acceptance of humanity as equals, had set the stage for something much larger. As she stood up to leave, a soft voice interrupted her thoughts. It was Neretha. You were right, the princess said quietly, her tone no longer filled with arrogance. I was wrong about humans. You're not weak. You're strong. Elena turned to face her. Thank you, Neretha. But we're not just strong because of our bodies. We're strong because we never give up, and we fight for what's right. The princess nodded, a small smile appearing on her face. Maybe there's more to you than I thought. I'll see to it that your people are treated fairly. You've earned that. As Neretha left the room, Elena stood by the window, gazing out at the stars. This was a new beginning for humanity. The battle for respect had been won, but the real work was just beginning. Elena knew that her victory wasn't just her own, it was a victory for all of humanity. The galaxy was watching, and humanity had proven that they could stand shoulder to shoulder with the greatest forces in the universe. And this was just the beginning.